Yo, what's good, y'all? Hope y'all having a good day. Hope y'all having a blessed day, man. I was just sitting here thinking that, most people are gonna end up being alone for their entire lives. You know what I mean? And on the surface, I guess that seems cool and all because there's kind of been an agenda pushed that being an individual and being independent is just this great thing. But the reality of it is that it's actually pretty bad for your health, not even just your mental health, but your physical health. And Generation Z is about to be the most lonely generation. In fact, if you look it up right now, like close to 50% of people are single right now in the US. And that does include widows and divorced people and separated people. So the number of people that just have never come into contact with a romantic partner long term is not that's not indicative of what it is. It's probably closer to probably like 25%, something like that. But even then, still, we are living in an age where being alone and being by yourself is becoming more and more popular. And I mean, I can't even begin to think about what it'll be in the next 20-30 years. It's going to be probably over 50%. And the reason why this is important is for a few reasons, man. Like, we've been seeing the rise in casual relationships, casual hookups, things of that nature, right? That's why you can't find a good girlfriend or find a good boyfriend these days. You know what I mean? Like, you can't find a good partner anymore because everyone is interested in just the fast life. You know what I mean? You're very encouraged to just get with somebody for the short term. That's why all these dating apps, the way these dating apps are set up, bro, they're not set up for no long-term relationship, because you get on there and you got a thirst trap to get a swipe. You know what I mean? And it's all about sex, bro. That's all it's about, bro. Nobody is getting married anymore. Like, the rates of marriage have drastically dropped because nobody's thinking about marriage. And there's reasons why that I'm gonna touch on it a little bit later. But the first thing I wanted to go over is how, like, the rise of casual hookups and stuff is literally crippling us, dog. It's crippling us and it's giving us more anxiety and more depression, dog. And the reason why casual hookups, I think, are so on the rise is not just because of a lack of self-control and the push to indulge. I feel like that's a part of it, but in my opinion, I think that the rise of casual hookups and just sexual deviancy in general is directly correlated to the fall of the dominance of religion. And I'm not just talking about Christianity. I'm talking about Christian, Catholic, Jewish. Back in the day, it was like shit. Like, think about the pilgrims that came over here, bro. Like, church and state was like this, right? Like, the church, like, religion was a very big thing in America. And over time, things have just continued to drop off, which, if you've ever read the Bible, this is expected. This is already predicted. But if you haven't, this is kind of just human nature, right? Like, we are not by nature, like, very moral. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just something that would have happened regardless. You know what I mean? And as the dominance of religion has fallen over time, we felt less and less shame. We felt less and less reason to feel that we need to be moral in a sexual way, right? And so that's given way to the rise of casual sex, casual hookups. You just meet somebody and you get with them the first time you see them. You're sleeping with all types of people from all types of places and stuff like that. And this rise of casual sex, again, has ruined the relationship. You know what I mean? It's ruined marriages. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, what it's led to is people that even want relationships are starting to give up, and they're starting to be like, whatever, I'm gonna just be in these streets, or I'm just gonna be single and go my own way, whatever. And this is going to have actually detrimental effects in the future, because as we continue to not have marriages and not have families and babies, you know what I mean, that's going to have a terrible effect on the youth. Population decline will eventually end up happening. But besides all that, man, this rise in, like, being very casual and stuff like that is also kind of paired with the rise of anxiety and trust issues. Like, everywhere you look, everyone has anxiety, everyone has trust issues, right? And I was thinking, like, why is this the case? And what I came back to was, like, this thing that I call, like, the Disney phenomenon, right? In other words, the reason I call it the Disney phenomenon is when we was growing up, you always watch these Disney princess movies, right? Like, when I was young, like, what was it? Like, Princess and the Frog was on. Shit, like, a little bit later after that, but there was Frozen, it was Tangled and stuff like that. I know millennials grew up on this too. It's not just Gen Z. But what these movies kind of taught us was that it gave us a very romanticized view of what love is and what to expect out of a lifelong partner at a young age. You know what I mean? Like, because, you know, you always had and they live happily ever after, and they're so nice to each other, and they're this and that. And it's not just the Disney stuff, right? I mean, it was always other production companies, but parents added to this too, right? They added these expectations, like for young men, right? Like your mom grew up, you grew up and your mom was telling you like, oh, you know, you always gotta treat a woman like this and this and that, and we're thinking like she's right, yeah. And then, you know, young women are being told, oh, like you should expect X, Y, and Z from a man, you should act this way, whatever. And what ends up happening is that that alongside with the fall of religion, the fall of morals, the fall of shame, it gave rise to people that were grown that we watched. So what was the generation before? Before millennials was what, Gen X or something like that, right? I could be wrong, but each generation, like Gen Z, watched millennials act out more because there was a fall of morals. And what do we know about kids? No matter what age you go to, bro, what generation, kids always feel like they want to act grown. They always want to act grown without the responsibilities of being grown, right? Like if you go to any high school, you know, a lot of people are going to think they're grown, even though they're nowhere near it and they're not mature at all. But they're going to try to act grown. That's why, unfortunately, you have a lot of, you know, young girls in high school that try to get with 20-some-year-olds. And you got a lot of young men out here that want to smash their teacher and stuff like that, bro. And what ends up happening is that they observe the older generations, and as they started to observe more casual hookups, more casual sex, there's more clubbing, going out, non-marital lifestyle, bachelorette lifestyle, they start to emulate that. And so what happens is now these expectations from the Disney phenomenon get broken, because now you get into your first relationship and it's like, oh wait, but this person in reality is acting like this person is not acting like how they said they was in the Disney movies. This person ain't acting how my mom and dad said they was gonna act. And we end up getting our little heart broke. Everybody's first relationship is bad for the most part, you know what I mean? That's where a lot of trust issues and anxiety develops, because now in every subsequent relationship you're now putting that against what you went through in your first relationship. Now it's like, damn, well, you know, I don't know if I can trust this person. And each relationship after that, it's always going to be much more difficult to trust that person because of the expectations that we had set, and because our expectations were broken, and because of the rise in casualness, bro. Right. And what this has led to is, again, the decline in marriage, the decline in relationships, right? Nobody trusts each other or anything. And, you know, this leads us to being alone. There's a lot of people that are alone right now. And it's funny because it's easier than ever to meet anybody. But I was just thinking about this the other day too, right? I was thinking about, like, because, you know, there's a lot of people that ask me, you know, guys will ask me like, Cam, like, where's the best place to meet women or whatever? Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of women out there that are wondering where's the best place to meet men. And understand that with the fall of community that I've talked about in previous videos, but with the fall of community, because we live in these suburbs and these isolated places, infrastructure is not set up for community. You know, community is just very highly discouraged. School has a monopoly over it. And even then, school is not really a place for community. But that's neither here nor there. With the fall of community, there's no real good place to meet anybody. Like, sure, you can go to your local church, but understand that since the younger generations are getting smaller and smaller, it's getting more and more difficult to find people your age that you can meet, that you can relate to at your local church, or, you know, whatever they call, I don't know if they call it church for other religions besides being Christian. You know, wherever you go for like religious meetings, gatherings, it's less likely that you will find people there that are like you, right? Especially with the fall of the dominance of religion nowadays, a lot of young kids ain't going to church no more, right? So now you wonder, like, where am I supposed to find, like, post-college, where are you supposed to find a partner? That's why your chances of finding a lifelong partner, I'm not gonna lie, after college drastically decrease. I heard there was like a statistic. I tried to look for it. I couldn't find it. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was some scientific data that backed up that your chances of finding a lifelong partner after graduating college decrease, because now the only place you'll meet somebody is maybe work, and you know, you don't want to shit where you eat. Sometimes, you know, you got to avoid co-worker relationships. And then where else? Like when you go out to the club, that's really the only place. And when you go out to the club, you're going to find a lot of casualness, right? What this all leads to is, on the front end, for attractive people, sure, they might have fun and they might be able to sleep around, but for those that are more on the average look side, for those who are not interested in casual relationships, and for those who are doing the casual shit, but they'll just hit this eventually. Everyone will get to this point eventually that's single. They're gonna realize how lonely they are, right? And this loneliness has huge detrimental effects, right? Like I said, like almost 50% of adults are living by themselves these days. And there's been almost like a propaganda, a push for this individualism and this, and it goes beyond just express yourself. It's this like, be independent, but like be super hyper independent. Like this hyper independence has become like, it's almost to the point where if you depend on somebody, right? Like if you tell somebody that you're in your mid to late 20s living with your parents, they're going to look at you weird. Like this hyper independence has led us to be like almost egotistical to the point where we don't want to rely on people, not just in relationships. Like, you got women saying, I don't need no man, guys saying, I don't need a woman, but just in general, just in life, people are like, no, like I'm better by myself. There has been this push for individualism, which is actually very, very detrimental to the human being because we are social creatures. In fact, if you look it up right now, not only if you live by yourself do you have an increased chance, when you're living by yourself for prolonged periods, you have an increased chance of becoming, depressed, but you also have like a 50% increased chance of like developing some health risks, like what was it? It was like stroke, 50% increase of possible dementia, like a 30% increase of possible stroke. There was one more in there. I think it had to do with like, cardiac issues and stuff like that. I could be wrong, but you can look all this stuff up. If you live by yourself for prolonged periods of time, it has effects on your mental and physical health because you don't have anyone there for you emotionally. Your social life begins to suck. It goes down the drain, right? But this contradicts itself because, on one hand, you got people saying, be more individual. You don't need nobody, right? But then on the other hand, being individual is not really that good. You know what I mean? We're not supposed to be by ourselves. We're not supposed to be this lonely. And then loneliness epidemic is not being taken serious, but it's going to be eventually when people start living less long, when people start, it's already starting to happen. We're starting to see people, get depressed at much higher rates. People are just not healthy in general. You know what I'm saying? And this is only going to continue to happen and continue to get worse. And there's no real solution for it right now because, again, the rise of just being casual hookups, the rise of, or the decrease of marriage, the decrease of wanting to have partners, the decrease of having friends even. People don't really even have friends like that. And I've dived into this topic before. It's all just leading us to be more lonely and just alone all the time. And this is horrible for us. Right? It's bad for us. And it's not even just health. Economically, it's terrible, right? Because we are heading to a space right now. Inflation is increasing, right? The current purchasing power we have is diminishing, right? Unless things turn around drastically, right? People are not going to be able to afford homes. People already can't afford homes. People can't afford apartments, condos. We can't afford cars. We can't afford a lot of the stuff that, would be considered like you need to have this in order to be like considered a responsible adult, right? Like we're not able to afford these things. People can barely afford groceries as it is. So when we're talking about you being by yourself, that only makes the stress that much harder. It makes it that much harder because when you have a partner, now you have dual income or whatever, or not even just a romantic partner. If you were to have a roommate, but there's such a push for, like, here's my thing. When I went to college, like, I guess I'm a bit different. I think a bit different, I guess. I was always excited to have roommates. I've always liked the idea of living with friends or living with roommates because not only is it an easier financial burden on you, but it's just better for being social, right? But for some reason, if you look it up, a lot of people are very anti-roommate. No, I want to have my own. I understand wanting to have your own space. That's one thing. Like, I need my own room. I do need my own space, maybe even my own bathroom. But, like, people are very anti wanting to live with other people. And I feel like it comes down to, like, just egotistical individualism that makes us think that we have to own everything ourselves. But we don't think about the detrimental effects of that. We don't think about what happens when we're by ourselves all the time. It's not good. It's not good to be lonely, bro. That's how people pass early, man. If you were around people, around a community, you would probably feel 10 times better, even if you didn't have a romantic partner. If you have a solid community around you, it won't hit you as hard. But a lot of you probably lay at home at night and you're like, I ain't got nobody. You feel bad. You know what I mean? We're lonely, man. And again, like, economically it's bad because, you know, we don't want to depend on nobody. The burden is going to be like doubly felt because, you know, you single income households are on the rise, you know, and we're in the infrastructure of our economy currently is set up so that you damn near have to have dual income, or else you're kind of screwed. Like I'm not even playing. I'm not even exaggerating. Like, look up the average house, the average cost of a house of where you are, and the average wage. Do you really think that you will be able to survive by yourself? Unless you are the outlier, the top 10%, top 20% earners in your state, you're probably not going to be able to afford much by yourself, man. I'm going to be honest. And this was actually done on purpose, right? This was something that was done on purpose to get more people into the workforce. That's a whole other video. But yeah, man, and that's part of the reason why men can't even be traditional men and why women can't be traditional women. But you know what? That's gonna be for a whole other video, because I could talk about this for like a whole hour. I don't want to keep y'all waiting too long, man. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section. Love you guys. Peace.